So in the Buddha's teachings, right, there are a lot of similes, and there are also a lot of references to snakes, right? Snakes. You remember when he was enlightened, the Buddha, he sat under the tree. They have the giant snake called Mukhalinda. So a lot of references, a lot of stories. So unlike in Western literature, you find that in Buddhism, snakes are actually symbols of good omen, not necessarily bad, not satanic. Right? So there's a difference there. Now the other thing is about similes. This discourse, Asi Visopama Sutta, which is found in the book of Connected Discourses, actually the vipers are only the first of the similes. Later when we go through, you find that actually there are many other similes, but all starting with the simile of the vipers. Okay, this discourse or this simile is also very useful. I understand some of you will be attending a meditation retreat, so it's also very good to have some background. So I think this will give you some preliminary, maybe some basic background. And a lot of what I'm going to mention here actually is all found in this very important discourse, a sutta, called the Satipatthana Sutta. All right? So if you are doing meditation, that is highly recommended that you get hold of a copy of the Satipatthana Sutta, which basically means the foundations of mindfulness, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, because all the topics that we're going to cover today is actually found in that discourse. Okay? From the 4 elements to the 5 aggregates, to the 6 sense base, all right? So all these things are actually found in that particular discourse. Okay? So I just want to mention that as a preliminary. Now the other point to understand this simile is that in the Buddhist teachings, we always talk about 2 levels of language, or 2 levels of understanding. Yeah? One is the level at a conventional level, at a conceptual level, or what we call at a relative level. Okay? Now we need that. We don't have a relative understanding of things. We can't exist in this world. Okay? But what the Buddha is trying to tell us or share with us is that there's also ultimately an absolute level or an ultimate level. Okay? So that is why, for example, today when we look at this simile of the 4 vipers, later you realize that the Buddha was actually referring to the 4 vipers as the 4 elements in our body. Yeah, 4 elements in our body. And in the Satipatthana Sutta, which I just referenced just now, there are 4 contemplations or 4 meditation, right? And the first meditation is actually meditation on the body. Right? Now, and meditation on the body is very important because, well, unlike other aggregates, your body is always with you, isn't it? Where can your body go? Okay? Of course, the Buddha says birth, old age, sickness, and death. Of course, the body eventually dies. But as long as you're alive, the body is something that is always with you. So it is important for us to understand our body. What constitutes our body? Because what we say as a body is what we would call a conventional truth or a relative truth. Samuti Satcha, the Buddha used the word. But in the ultimate sense, what's actually is in our body? So the Buddha says it comprises only the 4 elements. That's the body. Okay? And so on. So that is basically a summary of what this discourse is about. Ultimately, the essence of the Buddha's teachings is that not just for us to have some kind of philosophical or intellectual discourse, but to use the teachings to help us in our practice. For what? Our practice for us to understand our true self, to understand the nature of our self, the nature of existence, so that we will slowly but gradually overcome whatever mental suffering or mental unhappiness that we have and find peace and happiness. All right? So it is said that if you summarize the entire Buddha's teachings, it is just in 2 lines. I teach, that's what the Buddha says, I teach unsatisfactoriness, or I teach suffering, and how to overcome suffering. So it's very important for us to remember the Buddha did not only teach suffering, If the Buddha only teach suffering, then it becomes a very pessimistic way of life, isn't it? But that was not the essence. The whole basis of the Buddha's teaching, he spent 45 years sharing what he has discovered, is to show us the path, the way that we can find happiness of the mind. Okay? Remember? Birth, old age, sickness, and death. You can run away from that. Those are physical suffering. You can run away from it. But we can manage our mental suffering. So that's the whole basis of the Buddha's teaching. So all the teachings that the Buddha gave in his 45 years, which whether you look at the connected discourses, the long discourses, the middle length discourses, they all talk about basically the same thing. To understand what are the conditions that cause us suffering, because suffering doesn't arise by itself. Suffering arises from conditions. Because they arise from conditions, we also know how they can be eliminated. How you can, once you eliminate the conditions that causes suffering, there's no more suffering. Okay? So that's basically the essence. So remember that. Okay, so this, I'll run through very quickly the Similes. It's actually a story. This story is basically about, well, you have a person, who had committed an offense, and then the king went after him, but maybe, couldn't find enough evidence, so don't know what to do with him, but told him, okay, as your punishment, instead of sentencing you to death, instead of chopping off your head, I want you to look after 4 vipers. So his task is to go and look after 4 vipers. Again, as I say, it's a simile, it's a story. Yeah? He says, suppose there are 4 deadly vipers, 4 snakes, right? Then a man will come along, he wants to leave, because these are very poisonous snakes. So you've got to be very careful with the vipers. You want to live, you don't want to die. You desire happiness, you're averse to suffering. Now that sentence itself tells us that's what all of us are aspiring, isn't it? We all want happiness, we don't want suffering. But can that always be the case? Can we always have happiness and not suffering? So you see, that first line itself tells us that's the very nature. Okay? That a man would come along wanting to live. Who doesn't want to live? Who wants to die? Everybody wants happiness. We are averse to suffering. Then they would tell him, good man, there are 4 vipers. From time to time, you must uplift them, you must bathe them, you must feed them, take good care of them, you put them, when it's time for the vipers to sleep, put them to sleep. But if one of these vipers ever become angry with you, then good man, too bad for you. you may do whatever that you want to take good care of the vipers, but one day the vipers did, lost its senses and decided to bite you, and that's it. Okay? Do whatever has to be done, good man. Right? So read between the lines. Right? So these are similes. Okay? So this is about the 4 vipers. So imagine you have to take care of these 4 vipers every day. But imagine what happens if one of them turn around and then bite you. You're gone. Okay? Okay? Now then, from the 4 vipers, then the story moves on to what is called the 5 murderers. Then, then when the man realized this, that, even despite whatever he tries to do to take care of the vipers, one day the viper's going to turn around and bite him. So he decided to run away. So he tried to escape. Then he would flee one direction or another. They would tell him, then a good friend of his would tell him, okay, you better run away from these 4 vipers. However, when you run away, be careful, there will be 5, you have 5 enemies, 5 executioners or 5 murderers who are pursuing you, thinking, wherever we see him, we will take his life right on the spot. So he tries to run away from the 4 vipers, but now he just heard that he has escaped from the vipers, but there are going to be 5 murderers, executioners sent by the king to go after him. So the danger is still there. So that's the simile of the 5 murderers. Later on, we will see who are these 4 vipers, who are these 5 murderers. I'm just going to run through very quickly. It's just a storyline there. So you got the 5 murderers. So remember, he escaped from the 4 vipers, so now he got the 5 murderers who's going after him. Then, even if you could escape from the 5 executioners or 5 murderers, then this man was told by another friend that, you have escaped the 4 deadly vipers, you have escaped the 5 murderers, but there's another 6 there's another executioner who's even smarter than all the five. And this particular murderer who's been sent to execute you, he's actually an intimate companion. He's someone actually close to you, someone you thought is your friend, right? But in disguise, you know. So this guy, he's going to come with you with a sword and he's going to chop off your head. All right? So when you hear that, what do? You continue to run, right? So first you run from the 4 vipers, then you run from the 5 murderers, and now you run from the 6th executioner, who seemingly is a good friend of yours. Okay? Now he runs away. So where does he run to? You escape from the 4 deadly vipers, 5 murderers, you also escape from the 6th murderer. Then he ran into a village. Now when he went to the village, he saw the village was empty. All right, so you see that's a simile again, an empty village. Whatever house he enters, every house he enters, he found that the whole village is empty, is deserted, it's empty. All right, then he holds a pot. Even the pot is empty. All right. Then a good friend would tell him, this good friend could be a deva or we don't know, right? So a good friend would tell him, look, the reason this village is empty because the bandits have just raided this village. So you better not stay around. If you stay around, the bandits may come back and go after you. So do whatever has to be done. In other words, flee, run again. Right? So even you go to an empty village, so this is the simile of the empty village. So can you remember now how many similes you got? You got the 4 vipers, you got the 5 murderers, you got the 6th murderer, who is the intimate companion. Then you got the bandits who have already ransacked and destroyed the whole village. So, and it doesn't make sense for you to stay there because the bandits may come back. So the man has to flee again. Then as he was running, you know, then different direction, then what happens? He saw a great expanse of water, probably a river, a big river, whose near shore was dangerous, but whose further shore was safe and free from danger. So there was a huge river, right? The nearer to him, very dangerous. But he could see on the other end, it was peaceful and calm. Right? But how do you get to the other side? There was no ferry boat, there was no bridge, all right? There was, nothing that you could cross over. All right? So again, this is another very interesting simile. Great expanse of water. On this end, you find that the water is, it seems very dangerous, you know. But on the other end of that big expanse of water, the river seems to be very calm and peaceful. So where do you want to be? You don't want to be on this end. You want to be on the other end of the river, where it's peaceful. But how do you get to the other end? You need something to cross over, right? So maybe you need a ferry, you need a bridge, but you don't have that. Okay, so this is the great expanse of water. So that's the next simile. So again, he has to move on. Then the man would think, there is this great expanse of water, whose near shore is dangerous, but whose further shore is safe. Yes, there's no boat, there's no ferryman, there's no bridge for me to cross over. So what should I do? I should do something, right? So it reminds you of effort, isn't it? Right? Efforts in the Eightfold Path. Okay? All right? Like you want to what do you call that? To sign out to participate in this forthcoming meditation retreat. So before you can do that, you need effort. The intention and then the effort. So likewise, you want to cross over to the other shore. You can't. But do you just tell yourself, too bad, I can't do anything? No, you can do something about it. So what does the man do? He said, let me collect grass, twigs, branches, and foliage, and bind them together into a raft. You know what's a raft? Like a boat, okay? So that with the raft, making an effort, I can get safely across to the further shore. All right, you see this simile now? So slowly, there seems to be some hope now, isn't it? It starts with the 4 vipers, all right? Then you got the 5 murderers. Then you got the 6th murderer or executioner, who is an intimate companion, a friend in disguise. Then you got the bandits. Then you come to a huge expanse of water. You wanted to cross over. Initially, you thought that you could not do it. then you thought, yeah, I could do something about it. I can build a raft. I can try to cross over. So you build a raft. Okay. So later we'll see what is the simile of the raft. Then crossing over. Then the man would collect grass, twigs, branches, foliage, and he binds them together in the raft so that by means of this raft, he makes an effort with his hands and feet. He would get safely across to the far shore. All right? Crossover, gone beyond, the man stands on high ground. Okay? You see this word, crossover, gone beyond. All right? Some of you who are familiar with Mahayana Buddhism, you remember the Prajna Paramita Sutra? Pate, gate, gate, paragate. Remember that? So you cross over. All right? So you have gone beyond to the other further shore. All right? And if you have been studying or practicing Buddhism long enough, then you understand that Nibbana or Nirvana is also regarded as the other shore. All right? Whereas we are on this shore. Okay, so that doesn't mean that we can cross over. Yes, we can. We got to do something about it. Okay? So crossover, gone beyond, the man stands on high ground. Why high ground? When you're on high ground, then the next one tells you why. All right? When you're on high ground, then you will not be swept away by the flood, right? Okay, so once you cross over, that's on high ground. So now let's look at the simile for each of the similes, the meaning behind each of the similes. So remember the similes, the 4 deadly vipers, and then he talks about the 5 murderers or the 5 executioners, and then the 6th person who is apparently a close friend, but a companion in disguise. All right, then he goes to an empty village, and then ransacked by bandits. Everything is empty. All right, then he runs again. He sees an expanse of water. The near shore is very dangerous. He could not cross over, but the other shore is safe. So he wants to get over to the other shore. And how does he do that? He starts building a raft, and with that raft, he was able to cross over. So that's the story. So it's a very short discourse, but there's a lot of meaning. Right? For us to go through each of the simile, we are definitely not doing service in one session. Okay? For example, the 4 deadly vipers. So the 4 vipers of fierce heat and deadly venom. So this is from the text itself, the translation from the text. Yeah. So this is a designation for the 4 great elements. Now, what are these 4 great elements? Now, probably you all know in the periodic table, right? How many elements are there in chemistry? The latest, 118, isn't it? Right? 118 or maybe more. I don't know. But the Buddha wasn't talking about the periodic table, right? He's talking about what are regarded as what we perceive as a self, as a person. All right? So the whole teaching of the Buddha is to try to let us dissect this so-called self and see, really, is there a self, or is that an assumption? It's just a false assumption that we really have a self. Okay? So this is where in the conventional language, in the relative concepts, relative language, we said we have a self, we exist. You don't have a self, you won't be sitting down there. We all have a self. But the whole basis of Buddhist teaching is to go deep into analyzing what constitutes a self. So when you analyze it, when you break it up into its different components, you find that actually, where's the self? All right? In the Buddha's time, they used the aspects of the chariot. Today, maybe you use the example of an automobile, or of a car. All right, you buy your latest car, latest automobile. The car sits in your porch. You look at it, it's a car. You're not wrong, right? You must be delusional if you think that's a trishaw, isn't it? It's a car. Okay, but when you contemplate deep into what constitutes a car, what is a car? A car is made up of components, isn't it? Component parts, right? When you have got the 4 tires, you got the bonnet, you got the seats, you got the steering wheel, all right? You got the compression, When you put all this together, you got what? You got a car. But imagine you dismantle the car. You put the 4 wheels on one side, you put the steering wheel on the other side, you put the seat belt on another side, you put the compressor out, you know, the engine, you take it out. They're all scattered all over. Now, where's the car? Is there a car? There's no car. The car exists because when all the components are put together. So during the Buddha's times, he uses the example of the chariot. During the Buddha's time, there were no cars, right? So he used the example of the chariots. So similarly, you dissect or you dismantle the chariot. There's no chariot, right? So, but we need to use the word chariot as a way of communication. So language is a concept, isn't it? We use language to convey, to communicate. Right? The other simile which the Buddha always used is that, like, for example, a butcher. You have a cow, or it could be a pig, or it could be a chicken. Right? You have a butcher, you have a cow. When the cow is slaughtered, all right, then you got meat. Once a cow is slaughtered, you said, I want to eat. So you eat the meat. You say, I eat the cow. You don't eat the cow. You say, even language change. You see, right? You go to the market, you go and buy, if you are not a vegetarian, you buy pork. You got different different sections of the pig. All right? You go to the market, you don't tell the fellow, I want to buy pig. I want to buy pork. Which part of the pork? All right? The seller will think you're delusional if you say, I want to buy a pig because there's a pig. There's no pig. But when the pig is not cut up into its components, it's a pig. So when we are sitting here, we are standing, we are a human being. We are Benny, we are John, we are Tan, we are Ling, we are Ahmad, we are Raman. All right? But in ultimate sense, the body. What is the body? The Buddha says it's only made. It comprises only of 4 basic elements. Now these are 4 primary elements. Right? They are subsequently subsidiary elements. So we're not going to go into that. All right. So 4 primary elements. Earth element. What is this earth element? The experience of hardness and softness. Now you are sitting on the floor. You can feel the hardness, right? So that's the earth element. All right. What is the water element? Cohesion. For example, this body of ours, all right? If you don't have enough water, you find that your body may wither and you may even die. But this body, because this body is such that it has the element of water, it needs water, all right? So fluidity, fluids, you have the blood, right? So blood pressure, for example, all this falls under the water element. So when you look at earth and water elements, all right, so these are actually something that we take for granted, isn't it? But only when you do contemplation, you analyze, then you realize that this is actually what our body is all about. But is that all? You got hardness, you got softness, you got aspects of cohesion, you got fluidity, then you got the heat element, which is the fire element. Now, from the traditional Buddhist explanation, is the heat element or the fire element that results in, for example, our digestion. All right? If you don't have the heat element, you're not able to digest. All right? Maybe that's why Thai people, Burmese people like to take the spicy pepper chilies, right? So it helps in digestion, right? So that's the function, that's the experience of the heat element for digestion. Also, heat elements contributes to our aging. We get old. Right? That's why the Buddha said birth, old age, sickness, and death. So when the elements are not in balance, so we get all sorts of discomfort in our body. Okay? So that's a heat element. So heat element like temperature, all right, and then that gives us the experience of digestion and aging, so it falls under the heat element. And then Buddha said this body also have got the air element, right? You can feel the vibration, isn't it? All right, like when you sign up for the meditation, probably you'll not only be doing sitting meditation, probably you do walking meditation. So when you do lifting, your foot, then you also experience, right, the air element when you do walking meditation. All right? So there's a certain vibrancy in that. So if you look at this body, contemplation of body, as I said, if you're doing meditation, then the first, in the 4 foundations of mindfulness is called body contemplation. Kaya nupassana. Kaya means the body. So in the body contemplation, there are actually a lot of items. Why? Because the Buddha realized the body is the most important part. So the contemplation on the elements actually comes towards the last 2 items in the body contemplation, in the Satipatthana Sutta. All right? So it's important. Actually, just before this is a meditation on the 32 or 31 parts of the body. Sometimes it's 32, include the brain, right? So whether it's 31, 32, different parts of the body. So you also analyze different parts of your body: the hair, your skull, your flesh, your sinews. So 31 parts. So the Buddha was very methodical. He looks through our body. What our body comprises. Is the skin your body? Right? Is the flesh your body? It's part of your body. But when all comes together, we say that's our body. But in actual fact, where's the body? Where's the body? Okay, so this is the 4, called the 4 elements. Now, subsequently, we're going to look a bit on what is called the 5 aggregates, and then the 6 sense base. Now, these are the 3 very key aspects. Okay, so this is in the body contemplations in the Satipatthana Sutta. Okay. Now, one way for us to understand all these aspects of elements is not to look at it theoretically, not to look at it from a purely intellectual or philosophical perspective, but to see how, in our everyday life, right, we could use this as a form of contemplation. All right, contemplation. I'm sure in your meditation, you'll be explained. All right? So today I will not have time for us to go through that. But when you sign up for the meditation session, all right, I'm sure the Achan will be able to explain to you about all those things. Okay, so let's move on, because we got many more to cover. All right? Now the 5 murderers. The 5 murderous enemies. This is a designation for the 5 aggregate subject to clinging. Now, just now I mentioned to you what is considered a self, or what is considered a person, is true, but from a conventional language. But in the ultimate language, or the ultimate truth, is that there's actually no permanent self, or there's no self, the way we understand it. There is a self in a conventional way, but in the ultimate sense, there's no self the way we perceive it. Why? Because what we perceive to be a self comprises of just what is called aggregates. Okay? Aggregates is, the Pali word is kanda or skandhas. Is a very unusual English word. You can translate it as a lump or as a group. Okay? So the material form is what rupa. So that's where the 4 elements just now we talk about. Remember the 4 elements? So that's the body. So it is said what constitutes a person actually comprises only 2 aspects. One is the body, which is the materiality, and the other one is the mind, or the mental properties. So the physical properties and the mental properties. Physical properties we can easily understand, that's the body. And the Buddha spends a lot of time talking about contemplation on the body, Satipatthana Sutta. So in the 5 aggregates, the first one is the materiality. Okay, so that one I think we have already explained, so I'm not going to go again. So let's look at the next 4. The next 4 constitutes our mind. Okay, our mind. Now what constitutes mind? M-I-N-D, yeah? Mind, M-I-N-D. What constitutes a mind from the Buddhist teachings? He says that actually it comprises only 4 things. Feelings, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. So that makes up our mind. So what is these feelings? Now feelings from the Buddhist perspective is not emotions. Right? So there's a clear demarcation between feelings and emotions. Emotions will be more, maybe if you want, it covered under volitional formations, which we'll come to it. Okay? So here we talk about feelings. The Buddha was very precise, even if you look at the Satipatthana Sutta, when he defines feelings or Vedana as only three. You have three experiences of feelings. And what are these three? Pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, neutral feelings. All right? But of course, you can expand it. You know, you can further expand it into physical aspects and mental aspects. Okay? So let's talk about the feeling aggregate. All right? So when feelings arise, okay, it could be a pleasant feeling. What is our natural reaction? If it's a natural feeling, do we like it? Yeah, we like it. All right? We not only like it, we want it to stay. We want it to remain, isn't it? If an unpleasant feeling arises, what happens? We do not want it. We want it to go away. We may even feel angry. We may feel aversion towards it. Okay? Now, why do we have that? That's because of perception. So the next aggregate. What is perception? Perception is sometimes translated as cognition, right? So I'm not sure which translation of the Satipatthana Sutta you would use. If you use Bhikkhu Analayo's translation, he will use perception. He will not use perception, he will use cognition, which is from the Pali word sanya. I think if you use Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, he'll use perception, all right? So perception is your ability to put a mark to something you have seen, heard, smell, touch. So now we're going into the sixth sense base, which will come later. So perception is something that you remember. You remember that what you heard, you remember something you heard before. It was a pleasant, very pleasant music, for example. And this time you hear it again. So it becomes a pleasant music, right? So what happens is you want more. You want more of it. Right? Whereas if it is a very noisy place that you went to, maybe it's a restaurant, you remember it was very noisy. So the second time, you know, when you're asked, shall we go to that restaurant again? So you remember. So the perception tells you, oh, no, we will not go there again. Okay? So that's the function of perception. Now what about volitional formations? Volitional formation is where we say karma comes in. For example, in psychological terms, feelings aggregate is where we use the word affective, A-F-F-E-C-T-I, affection, you know, the affective aspects. Perception is where we use the cognitive aspects, the ability to cognize. Volitional formations is where we use the word conative. If you're familiar with basic psychology, conative, C-O-N-A-T-I-V-E, conative. Conative means something that would be translated into behaviors. So this is where your volitional formations. So the Pali word is sankhara, very difficult to translate, right? So this is where, for example, pleasant feeling arises, all right? You remember. Perception allows you to remember. It's a very pleasant feeling. So what happens? You want more. When you want more, you believe you want more because first you have that contact, isn't it? If there's no contact, how can you have that feeling? So feelings always leads to contact. So because you want more, so that contact will lead to cravings. You crave for more. Because you crave for more, all right, then you cling to it. You do not want to let go. All right? So that's why you understand this also in the context of another teaching called dependent origination, the 12 aspects. All right? So where because of contact leads to feelings, feeling leads to contact leads to craving leads to clinging, and then you got the sixth sense base. we will come to it. So it's not an easy topic if you don't have the basic, but when I raised this with the organizer, I was told that all of you are going to be meditators, so you are familiar with all these things. So I said, fine, okay. Then otherwise it gets very, it may be a little bit complex, yeah? They're all interrelated. Okay, so the simile of the 5 murderers, okay? So these are the 5 aggregates. Now, one way of understanding the five aggregates, especially the mind, is now you are listening to me, you're looking at my slides, okay? So it's consciousness, isn't it? Because you have, that's the last one, consciousness, the consciousness. So the consciousness aggregate recognize. The consciousness just recognize words through your eye objects, sense organ. All you have got eyes, all you've got ears, all right? So you've got the sense, the sense organs, and then you got the sense objects. Okay, so you could see, you can hear. So that's consciousness. Consciousness only do that. Now, if this is then your feelings. Then if you feel that, oh, this is something that I've not heard before, but I think, yeah, it's something I should contemplate about, so you think it's useful. Or you may think, this is something I don't quite understand what it's all about. It sounds really Greek. I should, skip it and then go back and then re-study all this again, right? Because you don't have that perception. The perception is not there, right? So your volitional formation is what you do next. Do you continue to, for example, further go back and then find out more about what is meant by the 5 aggregates, or you just leave it behind? All right, so that's your volitional action. So in others, you have a choice. You have a choice. Okay, so maybe after this, your volitional action is that you attend the meditation retreat. Or you think after this talk, it's too complicated, forget about it. All right, so you have a choice. So that choice you make is in the volitional formations, sankhara. That is why that choice is also where karma comes in. Karma, you know the word karma or kamma, karma. And the Buddha explains what is karma. Karma is intention. Right? Nobody forces you to come today, right? You come based on your own free will, based on your own choice. Okay? So this is the 5 murderers regarded as the 5 aggregates. Okay? Let's move on. Now, this 6th murderer, the intimate companion with drawn sword, this is a designation for craving and lust. Now, craving is insatiable. The more you get, the more you want. Like feelings, you get a feeling, you like that feeling, so you want more. When you want more, you cling to it. When you cling to it, you don't want to let go. But the reality is, if you understand the nature of these aggregates, all right, 2 levels of contemplating the aggregates, all right? We have finished the aggregates, right? So 2 levels of contemplating the aggregates. One level is to understand its nature. Its nature is, it allows us to, there's no self there. You look at the 5 aggregates, where's that self? There's no person there. Right? The other contemplation is that the aggregates are not permanent. They are subject to change. They are always changing. Your feelings, does your feeling stays forever? Even your feeling of happiness, how long can you feel happy about that? All right? Recently I was talking to some of our colleagues. We just paid our bonus to our staff. And I spoke to quite a number of them, and because previous year we did very well, so everybody got better bonuses. So when I talk to them, they all sound very happy, very delighted. So I said, are you very happy? They said, yeah, we're all very happy. And the next moment they said, in a way, we're also not very happy because we're worried next year we may not get the same bonus. You see? So that's the way our mind works. We just shift, we just shift. Right? Instead of being in the present, instead of experiencing the present, so we want to cling to it, isn't it? Right? So we find it very difficult to let go. So our happiness, and the Buddha is not denying that there's happiness, he's just saying that even happiness by itself is not permanent. is subject to change. So you look at the aggregates itself, and we understand that if we cling to the aggregates, we cling to our feelings, we cling to our perception, then what happens? Then you find that we are not going to be very happy. Okay, because that happiness that we have just doesn't stay in as much as we want it to stay. Okay? So here it talks about craving, and it says that craving is the cause of our birth and rebirth. Right? I think in the Four Noble Truths, isn't it? The Buddha says that's the cause. Okay? Now the other thing about early on about perception is when there's perception, what is the method so that our volitional activities will be wholesome? That's where mindfulness can come in. So I think in the Abhidhamma it is said that perception is a proximate cause for mindfulness to arise. All right. So if there's everybody have perception, right? You can't just say everybody will have feelings. But everybody will have perception, but not everybody will have mindfulness, right? So mindfulness needs to be cultivated. Mindfulness needs to be developed. So if we understand the teachings of the Buddha, so we understand there's feelings, we understand there's perception, and with perception we cultivate mindfulness. So that mindfulness will help us to determine our volitional activities. That's where karma comes in. All right, isn't it? So then we will know, should we do this? This is wholesome. Should we not do this? This is unwholesome. You see, so the whole fabric. So it's just actions. It's just experience. So at the end of it, you ask yourself, is there a person there? You can't find a person there. It's just not there. Okay? All right. So the sixth mudra here, it talks about is craving and lust. So because of our feelings, all right, because of contact leads to feelings, feelings leads to cravings, and craving leads to attachment, right? So we know about that from our own experience. So this is not something theoretical, isn't it? It's not something intellectual. We can see it for ourselves, all right? Something that you like very much. First, you have that craving. After craving, you cling to it. You do not want to let go, all right? Okay? So it can also work for something, for aversion. All right, you don't want things that are not pleasant, isn't it? So there's a craving for things that are only pleasant. So when something unpleasant arises, we try our best to shift it away as much as we can. So there's a craving for trying to get it away. All right, so that's how it works. Now the empty village, so this is the designation for the 6 internal senses, bases, eye, ear, nose and tongue. So again, just like the aggregates, which is by itself also empty, so the 6 sense base, if you look at the 6 sense base, so the eye, ear, nose, tongue and body, they appear to be void, hollow and empty. Right? Normally we talk in terms of 5 senses, isn't it? But the Buddha, in the Buddhist teachings, they talk about the mind. All right, so here you got the eye, and then you got the eye, and through eye consciousness, you have visible objects. Okay, if you don't have an eye, if you have an eye, the organ, but there's no eye consciousness, you can't see. All right, so you have an eye, you have the eye consciousness, then you can see. You got the visible object. You got the ear, which is the physical organ, and you can hear. You got ear consciousness, then you can hear sound. Then you got the nose, which is an organ. And then you got nose consciousness, then you can smell. Isn't it? Then you got the tongue, which is an organ. And then you got the tongue consciousness, and then you can taste. And then you got the body, all right? So that's the elements, and then you got the mind. All right? So likewise, the body, the consciousness, you have sensation, touch, tactile, right? Touch. And the mind will be mind objects, right? Ideas, thoughts, and so on. So, if you are interested in this, there's another discourse which I have cited there. It's called the Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta. Salayatana means 6 sense base, right? 6 sense base is the meaning, is the word here. So he says, if a wise, competent, and intelligent person examines each of them, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, they appear to be void, hollow, and empty. All right? So there were two characteristics. One is, when we contemplate on it, there's no self there. Where's the self? Is the eye the self? Is the ear the self? No. Is the nose the self? No. They are just component parts, like I mentioned to you just now, like a chariot, like an automobile. There's no self there. That's why the Buddha talks about the anatta teaching, the non-self. The second characteristics when we contemplate is that they are subject to change. All right? For example, your tongue, right? Or the tongue, when you taste some food, right? You got taste, so it's a feeling, pleasant feeling, you want more. All right? But the more you have it, after a while you find that in economics we call the law of diminishing returns happen, then you said enough. If I give you additional bowl of maybe your favorite noodle, you're not going to like it. You see, so it's impermanent, it's subject to change. It changed because of your experience changed. Too much of anything, you find that you said, that's too much, right? Okay, so in here, the six sense base are referred to as the empty village. It's empty because, again, there's no self. So all these are similes, right? So as I said, by going through this, we're actually going through the entire Buddhist teachings, right? Which may be a little difficult to digest, right? Even though you have the fire element. All right, then they talk about the bandit. So the six external sense. Now the earlier one will be the internal sense. All right, then these are the external sense. I think I've already explained to you. You have got the eye as an organ, and then you got the eye consciousness. You got visible forms. Okay, then of course sound, odor, flavors, touch, and the mental object. So you got both the internal and external. Now, in our contemplation, what's the difference between contemplating on the aggregates and contemplating on the six sense base? When we contemplate on the aggregates, we're actually looking inside us, very much internal experience. But when we contemplate on the six sense base, we also contemplate on relationships with the outside. Okay, because here you're talking about seeing external forms, tasting food which is outside of you, touching, all right, maybe a table, all right, and so. So the Buddha characterizes the empty sense organs as being attacked by agreeable and disagreeable sense objects. Okay, so through our six senses, do you always get agreeable objects? You don't, isn't it? So when you don't get agreeable objects, what is our approach? If we like it, through contact, we cling to, we crave for it, then we cling to it. We don't like it, aversion arises. Okay? So in the practice of mindfulness, that is where we also learn the importance of practicing equanimity. Right? To see things as just phenomena, experiences that arise. Because they are concepts. Just like when we sit in meditation, body contemplation, after a while maybe we find pins and needles in our legs, right? We find cramps, right? So the concept is, we say our knee is painful, right? So we may even think, will I be able to walk if I continue to sit, if my knee continues to give me the ache? So we attach that my knee or my body is aching. But in our practice, we are told to just to reflect or to contemplate. It's just a feeling. All right? And we have tried this. Right? I think all of us, many must have tried. We realize that if you sit through, you find that pins and needles just disappears. That feeling of pain in the leg is no longer there. Right? So which means that these feelings is not something that's permanent. It's subject to change. It's always changing. Okay? All right, so if it's agreeable, it's non-agreeable, we just let it be. Okay? For example, in the contemplation on the body, the Buddha advised his son in the Maharahula Sutta that how you treat this body like the earth. This earth element. So of course the earth, you also have the earth, the external earth element. Yeah, how do you treat this body like the earth? In other words, just like the earth, whether it's rain or it's sunshine, you know, the earth is stable, is unmoved, right? So can we develop that kind of mind, right? If we can develop that mind, then in the Maharahula Vada Sutta, the Buddha even told his son, Rahula, you can also cultivate compassion and loving kindness. Right? So it is not devoid of just purely looking at the components and then devoid of the affective part. Right? So, for example, in the sutta, the Buddha talks about, you know, the importance of also radiating love and compassion, so which is also very important. Okay. Then the great water, the great expanse. So the great expanse of water, this is a destination of the four floods. Now again, there's another whole discourse called the Oga Sutta, where the Buddha talks about what are the four floods. The floods of sensuality, all right? Floods of existence, the flood of views, the flood of ignorance. The flood of sensuality, for example, in the contemplation on the, just now I mentioned the Satipatthana Sutta, in the fifth contemplation on Dhamma, on phenomena, so that's one of the five hindrances. So the first of the five hindrances, for example, is sensuality, our attachment to sense desires. All right? So how do we look at sense desire? So it's like a flood. You know, we get caught and you get swept away by it. So the other thing we get swept away by is existence. So again, in this discourse, the Buddha talks about craving as the most powerful energy at the point of death that actually propels us to the next life. Right? So it's the craving energy, craving for existence. Right? So it is said that there are three very strong forms of craving. One is craving for sense pleasures. I think we all know that. Yeah. The other one is craving for existence. We all want to live. So even at the moment of death, it's like the analogy is that it's like, you know, a person is about to drown, then you throw a rope that he will try to catch hold of that rope. Right? So we all always have this craving for existence. So even at the moment of death, we want to cling to live. So that's a craving. Of course, the other one is the craving for non-existence. Right? So this is where it's also a form of craving where you feel that there's so much suffering in this world. You say enough, don't want more anymore. But that kind of craving is actually leading result of aversion, not understanding. You see, so there's a big difference here. For example, I think if you listen to some of the good teachers, they will always tell you that when you contemplate, for example, body contemplation on the 32 or 31 parts of the body, contemplation on the foulness of the body, contemplation on the four elements, if it's not properly guided, then the result is aversion to this body. And say, oh, you know, this body is no good. It's all filthy and things like that. So that's aversion. It's the reverse of attachment. You get what I mean? So how do we tread a proper middle path? So the teacher is very important, especially if you are going deep in meditation. But of course, if you're going to just meditate once every 3 months for 5 minutes, then that's fine. But I'm talking about if you are serious about meditation, when you do body contemplation, especially on the characteristics of the body or the foulness of the body, or the decaying corpse, then it's very important you've got a good teacher so that your experience does not turn to aversion. When it turns to aversion, you look at everything in a very negative light. And that's not the aim of Buddhist teachings. Right? The aim of Buddhist teaching, at the end of your meditation retreat, you should instead have joy, piti, P-I-T-I. Not piti, yeah? Piti. The Pali word means joy, happiness. So at the end of the meditation session, you should feel a sense of lightness, a sense of happiness, a sense of, say, yeah, this is something that's very useful. Okay, but if at the end of the meditation session you say, oh, this body is terrible, how can I end this body? This body is nothing but just filled with pus and blood and, you know, sinews and bone. Then you adopt an attitude of aversion. We've got to be very careful about that. So that's not the intention. Okay, so that's why the Buddha talks about avoiding that, right? No clinging as well as no aversion. So this is what happens, the craving for non-existence. That's why people commit suicide. Right? That's because of the false view of this self, that there's this self here. Okay, so you have to eradicate that. Okay? So the details are beautifully explained in the Ogha Sutta. So if you, this again a beautiful sutta, not very long, but if you look at this sutta, you look at Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, he gave a very good commentary. Because the sutta by itself is very short, so you may not fully understand it. So it's the commentaries, all right, that actually helps to explain. And in this Ogha Sutta, which I like very much, you look at the Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations, he gives a good commentary behind it. Okay? So crossing over. So the near shore, which is dangerous and fearful. So this is the destination for that self-identity, that self-view. All right? So this simile is also crossing over that self-view. That means you break this self-view. Okay? Again, as I said, we are not saying that we don't exist. We're just saying that there's no permanent self here. All right? Of course, we exist. We all sitting there. You're all real. You're not not apparition. You're not holograms. You're real, right? In that sense. Okay. So the near shore, which is dangerous and fearful. So this is samsara, this cycle of birth and rebirth. So this is a destination for identity. The further shore, which is safe and free from danger. So this is a destination for Nibbana. Now Nibbana is one of those terms which is very difficult to translate. There's a very good, you can listen to this talk, it's a podcast. It's by Ajahn Amaro. It's called Why We Should Talk About Nibbana. You know, a podcast, even in YouTube, you can get that very, very wonderful talk by Ajahn Amaro. I think some of you may have also listened to his talks. It's called Why We Should Talk About Nibbana. And then there's another book is about Nibbana explained in a very, like for example, Nibbana basically means bliss. Like for example, if you are able to sit, right, and then you experience calmness, peace of mind. That's Nibbana, but it's a very short one. It doesn't last. It doesn't last. All right, it doesn't last. So I think our practice is the more regular. As they say, practice makes perfect, right? As they say, practice makes perfect. So the more we practice, then that short moment of Nibbana that we experience when we are in a state of peaceful mind stays on longer and longer and longer. And before long, it becomes part and parcel of our life. Okay? So this is the crossing over, right? So the raft, what is a raft now? How do we cross over? Which is the essence of the Buddha's teachings. The essence of the Buddha's teaching is the method. What is the method? So the method is the Noble Eightfold Path. You must have right views and then right concentration. Right views, for example, is at the beginning. Just now, if you still remember, I talked about the 5 aggregates, right? You have volitional activities, where in psychology it's called the conative aspects, not the affective, not the cognitive, but the conative aspects of our mind. That's where we have a choice. If you have right views, you understand, such actions are wholesome. Because they are wholesome, they lead to happiness. Such actions are unwholesome. Because they are unwholesome, they lead to unhappiness. They lead to suffering. So which one would you do? What would you choose? You choose an action, whether it's through body or through speech or through the mind, that is wholesome. Because with right views, with right understanding, you know that will lead to happiness. That will not lead to suffering. You remember? Volitional activities, sankhara. So they're all interrelated. So with right views, without right views, you don't know. Probably you continue to be deluded. Okay? So this is this rough. Okay? And then making effort with hands and feet. What does it mean? In the Noble Eightfold Path, a very key component is what? Right effort. You see? Actually, it's a threesome, all right? Like for example, if you look at the Satipatthana Sutta, which I mentioned, very important if you're going to practice meditation, 3 very important words there. One is being ardent, in others have effort, and then the other one have mindfulness, and then clear comprehension. So the Pali word, for example, atapi, isn't it? Atapi means you are always ardent, always wanting to make effort. And that making that effort is always joyous, is always a happy effort, because it's based on understanding. But if you do that effort out of anger or unhappiness, that's not atapi, right? So atapi in the Satipatthana Sutta, if you look at it, then you will accompany it by sati and sampajana. Sati is mindfulness and sampajana is clear comprehension. And clear comprehension is a direct result of right views. Okay, so all these 3 are very important. So mindfulness by itself is not enough. You must have clear comprehension. Clear comprehension is where right views come in. And for you to do that, you need effort. No effort, nothing is going to work. If your effort is such that it's very weak, by the time the date for meditation comes, you said, oh, I think I got something better to do. So the effort is directed at something else. So your effort must be properly directed. So crossover, gone beyond. The Brahmin stands on high ground. Now here Brahmin in the text is always referred to the holy person, maybe the Arahant. Okay? He stands on high ground. So this is the explanation for Arahant. So that's why I mentioned like in the Mahayana Prajna Paramita Sutra, some of you are familiar. He says, gate, gate, paragate. That means gone beyond, completely gone beyond. Right? So that's a rough. That's the rough. Right? So the rough for crossing over. Now a very beautiful sutta I mentioned is the Alagadupama Sutta. Now this sutta is also about a snake. Right? It's also about the snake, where it says something like, besides about the rough, it says if you grasp the Dhamma must be grasped properly. You grasp the Dhamma wrongly, it's like you catch a poisonous snake by the tail. What happens? The snake will turn around and bite you, isn't it? Right? So it's very important. So that's why, example I mentioned, if you are not properly guided, you don't have right views, when you do contemplation or when you perceive, everything is impermanent, everything is non-self. Then you adopt a very negative view towards life. You look at your neighbors, you look at it, they're all non-self, they don't exist. Then you adopt a very negative view. Right? Then you go to office, people smile at you, you don't smile. Say, what is there to, what is, people wish you good morning, say, what is so good about the morning? Everything is impermanent, everything is suffering. Right? So you grasp the Dhamma by like you grasp a poisonous snake by the tail. Right? You look at some of the great teachers, they're always smiling ones, isn't it? Right? All the great, you look at the photos of Ajahn Chah, he's always in always smiling. And the late Venerable K. Sri Dhammananda, many of you may remember him. He's always full of laughter. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the late Master Hsing Yin, all the great masters. They're always full of happiness and joy. You see? And surely that's a result of their meditation. Isn't it? Okay, so that's a good inspiration for all of us. So that's the rough. Okay, so 10:30 is the conclusion. The nature of the 4 elements have the characteristics of being subject to change, they are suffering, and they are non-self. Okay, so we learn how to observe the interplay of the 4 physical elements within ourselves with perfect equanimity. So remember, as I said, the 4, our body, we have these four elements, right? We exist because of the 4 elements, all right? And then we talk about the aggregates. The aggregates, again, for us to understand that what we deem or what we think is a self is actually made up of just matter, which is the body, is made up of feelings, is made up of our perception, that means our ability to remember, and all this change. That is why as we get older, does your memory increase or decrease? Decrease, right? You can ask me, my memory, right? As I get older, I can't remember many things now, all right? Hopefully it's not amnesia, but, all right? So, it's subject to change. So our memory, and we have got selective memory. isn't it? A selective memory. So that is why it is also very important for us to cultivate what is called habitual karma. All right? So that as we get older and older, habitual karma we associate with wholesome things. Right? Maybe reading Dhamma books, being involved in charitable projects, helping other sentient beings, So all those things, hopefully they will remain vivid in our mind. So even when we are about to pass away, even when we are about, to take our last breath, so all those wholesome actions that we have done, they will be with us very vividly compared to others. As it is said, the more you do it, the more. Right? Okay, so there are a lot of benefits. Okay, so we learn how to observe the interplay of the four physical elements within ourselves. Okay, and with perfect equanimity, and find how valuable this ability in our daily life. So I always believe that the essence of the Buddha's teachings is when we are able to apply it in our everyday life, in our experience. When we deal with other people, when conditions for greed were to arise, are we able to recognize that greed is about to arise? And because if we can recognize it, then we have a high probability we can, even if you can't completely overcome it, you can dilute it. Likewise for anger, all right? For anger. Because we deal with people. As I said, not everybody will be nice to you, isn't it? That's the reality. People are only nice to you when you attend retreats, when you come to BAPs, when you attend meditation retreat, everybody say, oh, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Do you want more food? Do you have some water, some drinks? The moment you walk out, you go to office, nobody is going to say sadhu to you. Right? And people may be very nasty to you, isn't it? But that's the reality. So the real benefit of your meditation is, after this, are you able to relate that when dealing with other people? If you can only remain happy, peaceful when you are doing meditation, but the moment you are not sitting on your cushion, you cannot have that peace of mind when you deal with other people, and you get easily angry, conditions for anger arise, you cannot recognize it, then you have not actually benefited much from even your meditation. You may be spending months and months and months, so you have to reflect what actually happened. So always, His Holiness the Dalai Lama always tells us that this is what you call post-meditation. Post-meditation. While meditation is important, don't get me wrong, it's important, but even more important is post-meditation. That means after that meditation, you're able to apply what you have learned, what you have practiced in your everyday life.